Strange skeletons that stunned archaeologists, the mysterious remains of a horrifying ritual? Welcome back to Ancient History, the channel where we uncover secrets buried beneath the thick dust of time. Today, I'm going to tell you about a discovery that left the entire archaeological community stunned, literally frozen for 5 seconds, and even triggered an emergency meeting because no one could explain what had just been found. In a recent excavation, scientists uncovered a series of human skeletons positioned in eerie, unnatural postures. Some had their limbs twisted as if they were struggling. Others had their mouths wide open, as though frozen mid-scream in a state of panic. One glance is enough to tell that these weren't ordinary deaths. It was as if an entire community had experienced something truly horrifying. Even more disturbing, the skeletons weren't scattered randomly. They appeared to be deliberately arranged in a ritualistic manner, systematically, with order and purpose, possibly linked to some ancient form of sacrifice that has never before been recorded. Archaeologists quickly stepped in, proposing a slew of theories. Are these the remnants of a lost civilization? Evidence of a dark ritual? Or could this be a spiritual mystery that was long buried and forgotten? So where exactly were these skeletons found? What do their postures reveal? And could they be sending us a message from the past? Don't take your eyes off the screen, let's dive into the mystery together right now. A 900-year-old skeleton trapped in tree roots after a violent storm? A medieval murder mystery? What would you do if, on a perfectly normal day, you went out to clean up fallen trees after a storm, only to discover a human skeleton lying beneath the roots? Sounds like something straight out of a horror movie, right? But this really happened, and it took place in May 2015 in a small town called Collooney, located in County Sligo in the northwest of Ireland. At the time, a powerful storm had swept through the area, bringing with it strong winds and heavy rain, causing a 215-year-old oak tree to be completely uprooted. But the real surprise wasn't the fallen tree. After the storm, while locals were clearing the debris, they made a chilling discovery: a human skeleton beneath the tree's roots. Just hearing that is enough to give you goosebumps, isn't it? At first, everyone thought it might be a recent crime scene, a body hidden under a tree, so the locals immediately called the police. But no, when authorities arrived and examined the remains, they realized this wasn't anything recent. In fact, it was the beginning of a centuries-old mystery. The skeleton turned out to be very, very old. Ireland's National Monuments Service quickly stepped in and dispatched an archaeological team to the site. Leading the team was archaeologist Linda Lynch. Together with her colleagues from the Sligo Leitrim Archaeological Services, they began a preliminary excavation and analysis. The result? The remains belonged to a young man between the ages of 17 and 20. But that wasn't the most shocking part. Using radiocarbon dating, they discovered that this young man had died sometime between AD 1030 and 1200 during the medieval period, over 900 years before the skeleton was found. And here's where it gets disturbing. His death wasn't natural. The skeleton showed multiple fractures on the ribs and hands, likely caused by a knife or other sharp object, suggesting that the young man may have been tortured before he died. But what kind of torture was it? Who did this to him, and why? These remain unanswered questions. What we do know is this: when the oak tree fell, its roots pulled the upper half of the skeleton out of the ground, while the lower half remained buried, creating a haunting scene, almost as if nature itself had been trying to unearth a long-buried story. According to archaeologist Marion Dowd, the project's director, the young man was likely a native Gaelic individual. That period in Irish history saw frequent conflict, especially after the Anglo-Norman invasion in 1169. It's possible that he was caught up in a power struggle, or simply became the victim of a personal vendetta in the brutal medieval era. But here's the strange part. He was buried according to Christian traditions, which suggests he wasn't just some anonymous victim or criminal dumped in a shallow grave. No personal belongings were found with the body, but records show that there used to be a church and cemetery in that area during the 19th century. To this day, no other evidence of Gaelic presence has been discovered at the site. And so, this mystery leaves behind a massive gap no one has been able to fill. Who was this young man? Why was he tortured? And who buried him in a place where, 900 years later, a tree would accidentally preserve his story like a time capsule? 2,800-year-old skeleton of an Iron Age princess unearthed. The story began in an area called Saint-Vulbas, located just about 20 miles from the city of Lyon, France. While workers were clearing land to build the Plaine de Laine Industrial Park, an excavator hit something unusual buried in the ground. That's when a team of archaeologists from France's National Institute for Preventive Archaeological Research, INRAP, was called in. What they uncovered left the entire archaeological community stunned. Buried about 9.5 feet underground, they found the remains of an oak coffin, a type of wood that is incredibly rare and durable over time. The coffin was rectangular, measuring nearly 10 feet long and 3.3 feet wide, carefully buried in a large pit. But that wasn't even the most astonishing part. As they excavated further, they discovered the skeleton of a woman, along with a collection of exquisitely crafted jewelry. These items turned out to be key clues in identifying her as likely being a princess or noblewoman of the Hallstatt culture, which flourished during the 8th century BCE. At this point, you're probably wondering, what exactly did they find inside this ancient tomb? On her wrist, scientists found a green glass bracelet combined with bronze beads, a beautiful piece that also demonstrates the advanced metalworking skills of the time. There was also a bronze alloy clasp about 2 inches wide, suggesting she once wore a leather belt. And as you can imagine, leather goods back then were rare, expensive, and hard to produce. But that's not all. Inside the tomb, they also found fragments of the pelvis, femur, part of the skull, and the sacrum. Despite the passage of time eroding much of the remains, the skeleton was still well preserved enough to offer valuable insights into her lifestyle, beliefs, and social status. Interestingly, this wasn't the only burial site discovered in the area. Archaeologists found 2 other graves, but clearly, it was the Hallstatt princess who captured the world's attention. The Hallstatt culture is renowned for its advanced farming techniques, complex metalwork, and especially for its ancient trade routes connecting southeastern France to the Mediterranean, facilitating the exchange of goods, culture, and technology. This was also the era when hill forts began to rise, fortified with walls and defensive ditches to protect against hostile tribes. But here's the thing. If it weren't for this accidental discovery, the stories of the Hallstatt princess and the entire Iron Age culture she belonged to might have remained buried forever. So what do you think? Was the woman in that tomb truly a princess? Or could she have held an even higher or more mysterious status? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your perspective. And remember, the ancient world still holds countless secrets, just waiting for us to uncover them. 3,000-year-old assembled skeletons found in Scotland. Some archaeological discoveries leave us awestruck by their beauty. Others puzzle scientists with their strangeness. And then there are those that chill us to the bone, too mysterious, too bizarre to believe. What I'm about to tell you is one of those stories. It sounds like something straight out of a horror movie, but it's 100% real. It all began in a windswept, remote corner of the world, the island of South Uist, off the coast of Scotland, specifically at a site called Clad Hallen. At first, it seemed like a fairly typical excavation site, but in 2011, while archaeologists were digging, they uncovered 2 ancient skeletons, dating back nearly 3,000 years. At this point, you might be thinking, oh, just another set of bog mummies like those found across Europe. But no, what came next was the real plot twist that made everyone's hair stand on end. After conducting thorough analysis, including CT scans, DNA testing, and radiocarbon dating, scientists discovered something truly unsettling. These weren't the remains of 2 individuals. Each skeleton was actually a composite, assembled from the body parts of at least 3 different people. One person's skull, another's torso, someone else's limbs. Male, female, old, young, all pieced together into single, strange human forms. It's as if our ancestors were building humans like puzzles. Creepy, right? But it gets even deeper. This wasn't done for shock value or out of superstition. Some researchers believe this practice may have been part of a deeply spiritual or symbolic ritual. To the people of that time, the dead may not have been seen as individual souls, but rather as a collective presence, a representation of the family line, or even a symbol of communal identity passed down through generations. Much like how we say today, the dead live on in our hearts. The ancient people might have meant that literally, through reconstructed bodies made from the bones of their loved ones. The dead were still alive in a sense, living on through flesh, memory, and ancestral connection. Professor Mike Parker Pearson, who led the research team, even proposed a striking theory. These bodies may not have been buried right after death. Instead, ancient people may have preserved the corpses for years, even decades, using natural methods such as burying them in peat bogs, exposing them to smoke in huts, or storing them in underground chambers to prevent decomposition. Then, at a spiritually significant time, they would assemble the body parts and conduct a ceremonial burial. This could have been a way of maintaining the dead's presence in daily life, as a spiritual protector or a symbol of ancestral authority for the family or the wider community. What amazed scientists most, though, is this. Without coffins, chemicals, or modern technology, these ancient people still found effective ways to preserve human remains, preventing the typical decay process. This proves they weren't the primitive people we sometimes imagine. They had a remarkable understanding of their environment, of the human body, and of the spiritual significance of death. When you look at these composite skeletons, the eerie part isn't just the physical appearance, it's the story behind them. In every joint, every fused bone, might lie an ancient tradition of confronting death, not as an end, but as a transformation into something greater, a resonant being, built from those most loved. So, were these ancient people trying to send us a message? One we still haven't deciphered? It's hard to say, isn't it? But one thing is clear. These skeletons are still there, lying beneath the earth like unfinished puzzles of history, waiting to be slowly pieced together. And who knows? Maybe one day in the near future, we'll look back and realize our ancestors may have understood life and death far more deeply than we ever imagined. Ancient skeleton with knife prosthetic reveals a story of survival in the Middle Ages. Did you know that archaeologists recently uncovered an incredibly unique skeleton at a Lombard cemetery in northern Italy? And the story behind it is nothing short of astonishing. The remains belong to a man who lived over 1,000 years ago, sometime between the 6th and 8th centuries AD during the Middle Ages. But what made this skeleton stand out among hundreds of others is this. The man lived with a knife permanently attached to his right arm, replacing a missing hand. Sounds wild, doesn't it? How could someone back then survive with a prosthetic arm that was literally a knife? First, archaeologists estimated that the man was between 40 and 50 years old when he died. His right hand had been lost due to a severe wound, though it's unclear whether it was caused by an accident or in battle. Given what we know about the Lombards, a fierce warrior people, it's not far-fetched to think he may have lost his hand in combat. But what truly stunned researchers was the evidence found on the remaining forearm bones. The end of the arm didn't just show signs of injury, it showed clear indications that a prosthetic had been attached and used for a long time. How could they tell? Because the bones displayed scar tissue formation and bone spurs, suggesting prolonged pressure and use, exactly what you'd expect if a tool or object had been regularly strapped to that spot. Even more surprisingly, the man's teeth showed unusual wear patterns, suggesting he used his mouth to tighten leather straps that held the knife arm in place. Like something out of an adventure movie, right? But this is a real-life testament to the ingenuity and determination of people living in a time when medicine was nowhere near what it is today. And here's something else that's fascinating. The way this man was buried was entirely different from other individuals in the same cemetery. Normally, Lombard warriors were buried with their weapons laid beside them, with arms resting naturally. But in this case, the man's right arm was bent at the elbow and crossed over his body, with a knife placed where the hand would have been, its handle directly aligned with the cut end of his forearm. In addition, archaeologists found a D-shaped buckle and fragments of organic material, likely leather. This suggests that the knife was part of a custom leather cap or harness, securely fastening it to his arm, both practical and durable. From this discovery, we see more than just a tale of personal survival. It reveals a man's incredible resilience and adaptability, but also the care and support of the community around him. During a time when medical knowledge was limited, for someone to lose a hand and still live into middle age while using a tool prosthetic to carry out daily life is truly remarkable. This shows that the Lombard society didn't abandon the disabled, but rather helped them adapt, supported them, and ensured they remained part of the community. Can you imagine a man from centuries ago missing part of his body, yet still managing to live, work, and even use his mouth to adjust the straps on his knife arm? This story not only amazes us with the ingenuity and endurance of ancient humans, but also reminds us of the compassion and empathy that existed within early societies. So, what do you think about this man? Does the story of his knife arm leave you as astonished and inspired as it did the scientists who found him? Just imagine, a world with no modern medicine, yet people still fought to overcome hardship, to invent, and to hold on to life with everything they had. That's the message this remarkable skeleton has left behind, a timeless lesson in human strength, creativity, and humanity. A skeleton with a giant head in the Peruvian jungle. Have you ever wondered how many mysteries remain buried deep within Earth's ever-changing landscape? Each archaeological discovery doesn't just transform our understanding, it shakes the world with profound questions about humanity's origins. Let me tell you about one of the most controversial finds in recent memory, a giant-headed skeleton unearthed in a forested region of Peru, leading many to believe it could be evidence of extraterrestrial life. Specifically, in November 2011, archaeologists in Peru working near the town of Andahuaylilas discovered two extraordinarily strange skeletons in a forest area. The first skeleton stunned observers with a skull measuring a staggering 20 inches, about half the length of the entire body, which measured roughly 40 inches total. Imagine a head so large it dwarfs the rest of the body. Could this really belong to a living creature that once existed on Earth and not a hoax? But the peculiarities don't end there. This skull had massive, round, deep eye sockets and visible cranial sutures, evidence of injury or perhaps surgery. It even contained two wisdom teeth, a feature adults possess, which makes the combination with an infant skull shape even more uncanny. The second skeleton was equally mysterious, only about 12 inches long, missing a distinct face, curled in a fetal position, and wrapped in a mysterious organic layer. It resembled something alien, like a creature humanity has never encountered. Intriguingly, the shape of the skull bears an uncanny resemblance to depictions of aliens in popular media, especially in films like Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, 2008. This resemblance fueled speculation. Are we looking at alien remains or the bones of an undiscovered race of giants? Immediately after the discovery, 3 anthropologists from Spain and Russia examined the remains and performed DNA testing on the eye socket tissue. They concluded that this was not modern human, but rather a distinctly different species with an oversized head, even calling it extraterrestrial in nature. Today, this skeleton is meticulously preserved at a museum in Cusco, Peru, serving as a provocative piece of evidence that challenges our assumptions about Earth's history and raises the possibility, however remote, of extraterrestrial visitors. But do you believe these claims? Has science truly proven alien origins in this skeleton? As Albert Einstein famously said, "What is unknown to us is always greater than what we know." Personally, I lean toward a different hypothesis, that this might be the remains of an ancient giant, a mysterious human race not yet documented by modern science. What do you think? Could this giant-headed Peruvian skeleton be proof of alien life, or simply a hidden population of giants who once walked the Earth? The mystery remains, waiting for us to probe further. Perhaps one day soon, we'll have answers to the biggest questions of all, about life and our origins. Which hypothesis do you lean toward? While this story makes for gripping speculation, it's important to note that mainstream science offers more grounded explanations. Elongated skulls in Peru are most commonly the result of artificial cranial deformation, a known cultural practice, not extraterrestrial traits. The Museum of Osteology displayed a cone-shaped Peruvian skull with a possible metal implant, which may represent ancient cranial surgery, or potentially a modern fake. Experts remain divided due to lack of conclusive scientific testing. The so-called giant skull from Andahuaylilas has been thoroughly examined by forensic anthropologists, who concluded that it likely stems from a congenital condition in an infant rather than an alien being. In short, while the giant-headed skeleton remains a compelling story, the scientific consensus strongly supports it being a human anomaly rooted in cultural or medical conditions, not evidence of extraterrestrials. The 1,300-year-old Dark Age dancer skeleton found in Siberia. Have you ever thought that the way someone is buried could tell a strange, haunting story? If not, let me share with you a recent discovery from the Ust-Ivanovka burial site in Primorsky Province, Siberia. Archaeologists uncovered a 1,300-year-old skeleton laid to rest in a burial pose so unique and compelling, it left experts utterly astonished. This skeleton has since been nicknamed the Dark Age Dancer, and that name alone makes you want to uncover the mystery, doesn't it? The remains belong to a man in his early 30s. His body was buried in a wildly unconventional position, legs crossed as if he were dancing, knees flared outward, with his arms wrapped around his pelvis. Well, who would think that this was a normal burial ritual? Even lead archaeologist Denis Volkov remarked that the posture is completely unlike any traditional burial style known in Siberia. Some researchers suggest the man may have been bound before burial, because otherwise his limbs would have been straight, not twisted into such an unnatural embrace. Remarkably, no other burial from that era has shown signs of the deceased being tied in such a manner. This baffles researchers even more and raises questions. Was this an unusual ritual? Did it carry a deeper symbolic meaning? The uniqueness doesn't stop there. His grave was rectangular, whereas most others found in the area are circular. That's a striking deviation, one that sparks curiosity about why this particular individual received such markedly different treatment. What's more, other skeletons in the cemetery belong to elderly individuals, often aged 50 to 70, whereas this man was only around 30. His young age, combined with the dancer-like burial pose, deepens the mystery surrounding his life and death. Adding another layer to the intrigue, archaeologists found an arrowhead embedded deep in his hip. This suggests he might have died from a violent attack, perhaps in battle or conflict. But that may not be the whole story. Researchers are also exploring whether serious illnesses, such as tuberculosis or syphilis, might have weakened him prior to death. Of course, while these hypotheses seem plausible, they're only the beginning. Experts will need to conduct further analysis, from bone microstructure to any associated fossil evidence, to uncover the truth behind both his cause of death and the bizarre burial pose. But just think about it. Finding a 1,300-year-old skeleton arranged in a dance-like twist is enough to stop you in your tracks. In archaeology, unexpected discoveries open windows to rich stories about human history, cultural practices, and unresolved mysteries. Terrifying discoveries in China that left scientists speechless, a millennium-old mystery unsolved. The tomb that fooled future generations and the thrilling 7-year excavation. If you think excavating an ancient tomb is simply a matter of digging it up and finding it, then the story that starts today's video will make you think twice. There are secrets buried deep underground for thousands of years, so complex that a whole team of experts spent over 7 years trying to unravel them. This is exactly the case with the mysterious tomb at Mount Qishan in Suzhou, China, a place that holds a significant part of the great history of the Han Dynasty. It sounds like something out of a movie, but everything began quite by chance in February 1981. While a group of local villagers was quarrying stone at Mount Qishan, they accidentally discovered a strange tunnel leading deep inside the mountain. The whole village was curious and excited, and they decided to tie a rope around a brave young man and lower him down to explore. What he saw inside truly sent chills down their spines. Rows of life-size terracotta statues of people and horses, quietly arranged as if guarding someone very important. The news quickly reached the authorities, and soon after, an archaeological team was sent in. But things weren't as easy as in the movies. When excavation began, the inside was completely empty. There was no trace of a tomb. Experts then realized they had stumbled upon an extremely sophisticated deception, almost designed to fool anyone trying to enter. However, they did not give up. They expanded their search using modern technology, geological detectors, ground-penetrating radar, and more. It wasn't until 1988, 7 years after the initial discovery, that they finally located the actual tomb. When the tomb's main door was finally opened, everyone stood in stunned silence. Inside was a space covering nearly 7,535 square feet, almost filling the entire mountain interior. On the stone walls was a carving of a person with arms outstretched in welcome, as if the tomb was not only a resting place, but also a message sent to future generations. At that moment, everyone shared the same question: who built this monument, capable of such grandeur thousands of years ago with only primitive technology? But the surprises didn't end there. What shocked the archaeological world even more was what lay inside the tomb. Although an ancient stone inscription read, "I may be of the Chu royal lineage, but there is nothing valuable in my tomb, so do not disturb it," the reality was the complete opposite. Inside was a huge treasure. gold, silver, jade, and thousands of rare artifacts. From this, many believe the tomb's owner deliberately left a false warning, a psychological trap to mislead grave robbers. But the true identity of the person buried here has puzzled experts for years. There were no authentic inscriptions or records to confirm it. The breakthrough came when a local farmer, who had sneaked into the tomb before it was strictly protected, remembered finding a small item, a bronze seal engraved with a turtle and the two characters Liu Ju. After careful examination, archaeologists confirmed it was the personal seal of Liu Ju, a figure believed to be an important official of the Han Dynasty. From that point on, the name Liu Ju was officially recorded in history, associated with one of the most magnificent and mysterious Han Dynasty tombs ever discovered. As you can see, the story of Liu Ju's tomb is not just a simple archaeological excavation. It is a vivid testament to the intelligence, creativity, and forward-thinking mindset of ancient people. From the misleading message to the clever design and the enormous treasure hidden deep in the mountain, it all feels like a mental puzzle the ancients left for us to solve. And perhaps, even after excavation, the tomb deep inside Mount Qishan, China, has not yet revealed all its secrets. Because who knows, beneath that ancient stone, something else might still be waiting to be discovered. What do you think? Do you agree with this view? Personally, I believe it with 90% certainty. A tomb carved deep into the mountain with the ghost of King Chu welcoming visitors. You've probably heard of grand, magnificent tombs buried underground with lavish mausoleums, but did you know that in China, there is an extraordinarily special ancient tomb, not buried underground, but carved straight into solid rock, so vast it leaves people in awe? Yes, this is the tomb of King Shang of Chu, Liu Ju, the 41st king of the Chu state, located at the foot of Mount Qishan in Suzhou, Jiangsu Province, China. This region was once the homeland of Liu Bang and is rich in history and culture. The story began in February 1981 when a group of local villagers accidentally discovered this tomb. At first, it seemed like an ordinary tomb, but once archaeologists started excavating, everyone was amazed by the extraordinary scale and architecture they uncovered. Instead of being buried underground, this tomb was hollowed out inside the mountain, extending with two parallel corridors running north to south. In total, it consists of 15 chambers covering over 7,535 square feet with a volume reaching about 91,800 cubic feet, a staggering figure that still astonishes archaeologists today. What's even more astonishing is the architectural precision. The two corridors are exactly 62 feet apart, with an error margin of only 1 part in 16,000. That means if extended, they would never intersect within 621 miles. Moreover, the slope of the passage is only 1,000th, virtually perfectly flat, while the entire structure was carved into hard mountain rock, something that would seem impossible to accomplish without modern equipment thousands of years ago. So, how did ancient craftsmen complete this masterpiece? That question continues to puzzle experts. When entering the southern corridor, you immediately see 26 massive stone blocks stacked in 2 layers blocking the tomb's entrance. Each block weighs between 6.6 to 7.7 tons and fits together so tightly that not even a coin can slip between the cracks. However, the origin of these stones remains a mystery, sparking various theories about ancient construction and stone transportation techniques. Inside the tomb are 8 rooms, each carefully excavated and intricately designed. The corridor walls are smoothed for easier transport of materials, while the walls inside the burial chambers are roughened, reflecting the distinct aesthetic views of that era. Notably, large polished square stone pillars stand in the rooms, not only serving decorative purposes but also reinforcing the structure to prevent collapse, ensuring durability for thousands of years. And here's the most amazing part. When the main tomb chamber was opened, archaeologists discovered a large, life-sized shadow projected on the northern wall, where King Shang's coffin was placed. This image is called the King Chu welcoming guests, symbolizing the king greeting honored visitors to his tomb. This shadowy figure doesn't just feel lifelike, it adds a mysterious aura to the entire site. After decades of excavation, King Shang's tomb has yielded many precious artifacts, but more importantly, it still holds mysteries that challenge the knowledge and intellect of modern researchers. From precise construction techniques to the origin of the stones, From the layout of the rooms to the unique images inside the tomb, everything feels like a magnificent real-life fairy tale. So, what do you think about this mysterious tomb carved straight into the mountain? Will the secrets hidden inside ever be revealed? Or will they remain a big question mark for all who love exploring history and culture? Share your thoughts and feelings, because who knows? You might be the first to uncover new discoveries on the journey to solve the legendary mystery of the King Chu welcoming guests. The world's most mysterious golden coffin, over 10 years still unopened. More than 10 years ago, in Taiyuan City, Shanxi Province, China, an archaeological discovery stunned both experts and the public, not just because of the precious material, but because of the enormous mystery and historical value it carried. The discovery was a coffin made entirely of pure gold. Just hearing that sounds fascinating, right? The ancients placed great importance on funerary customs, but a real golden coffin, especially one of such large size, is incredibly rare. However, what's even more remarkable is that after the golden coffin was excavated, experts did not open it right away. Why? Is there a secret inside that technology isn't advanced enough to explore yet? Or are there deeper reasons why this coffin has remained untouched for more than a decade? Let's dive deeper into this story to find answers. The story began when Longquan Temple in Shanxi, China, underwent renovation, a seemingly simple task that accidentally uncovered an extremely valuable archaeological mystery. While digging, workers found an ancient tomb containing 5 nested coffins. Arranged in order were stone, wood, bronze, silver, and finally gold, a truly rare and astonishing combination. Among them, the pure gold coffin with intricate patterns on its lid heightened both its value and curiosity. Experts were immediately called in, and after thorough analysis, they confirmed this was no ordinary artifact. It was definitely connected to religious and cultural beliefs, particularly from the Tang Dynasty, a glorious era over 1,000 years ago in that region. Of course, owning a golden coffin like this meant the owner was undoubtedly someone incredibly wealthy, powerful, or held a special status in ancient society. This excited archaeologists even more, as they believed the tomb must still contain many other precious relics waiting to be uncovered. But things were not as simple as they seemed. When the golden coffin was brought to the lab for opening, experts discovered a critical detail. The coffin was tied with a special red silk ribbon dating back to the Tang Dynasty. If this ribbon were removed, it would quickly oxidize due to exposure to air and light, which would mean losing priceless historical value. If you're familiar with archaeology, you probably know that oxidation is one of the greatest enemies of artifacts just excavated. Many precious relics have been damaged irreparably simply because they weren't preserved carefully from the start. For this reason, experts had to halt the opening of the golden coffin and wait for more advanced technology to ensure the original values were fully preserved. And so, for over 10 years, despite their strong desire to unlock the secrets inside, archaeologists have only dared to study it indirectly, unwilling to risk damaging either the coffin or the precious silk. They understand that excavating without proper preservation is tantamount to destroying history, which is unacceptable. With the continuous advancement of science and technology, there is hope that one day, the mystery inside this golden coffin will be safely revealed. But until then, the question, what's inside the golden coffin, remains a huge mystery that keeps many awake at night. Through this story, we not only see the rarity and preciousness of the golden coffin, but also understand the importance of preserving cultural heritage. Sometimes keeping something intact is the best way to honor the past and prepare for the future. Do you think that with ever-advancing technology, archaeologists will soon open this time capsule? And will what lies inside shock the world even more than the shining gold exterior? Subscribe to the channel and stay tuned, because history always holds fascinating secrets yet to be revealed. The 1,500-year-old ancient temple housing over 200 Buddha statues and a precious pearl treasury in the heart of China. Would you believe me if I told you that beneath the ground of an ancient city in China lies a 1,500-year-old temple filled with countless priceless treasures that few know about? If you don't believe it, join me as we travel back in time to the city of Datong, Shanxi Province, China. Here, archaeologists made a stunning discovery by successfully excavating a temple from the Northern Wei Dynasty, a unique historical period from 386 to 396, 535 AD. This temple is not just a relic, it is considered a living treasure, reflecting the prosperity and grandeur of a golden era in Chinese history. Speaking of Datong, did you know it's not a newly built city? It actually dates back to the Han Dynasty, more than 2,000 years ago. However, Datong truly became a major cultural and political center when it was chosen as the capital of the Northern Wei Dynasty. It was here that northern China was unified after a chaotic period known as the 16 Kingdoms era. This ancient temple stands as a vivid testament to that time. The temple was built on a square plot, featuring architectural styles characteristic of the Sui and later Tang dynasties. But what amazed archaeologists most was what they found beneath the temple's foundation. Over 200 Buddha statues were preserved almost perfectly, many of which were gilded with gold leaf, a highly skilled artistic technique that leaves anyone in awe of their brilliant beauty. These statues are not just religious artifacts, but also evidence of the advanced craftsmanship and casting techniques of the Northern Wei era. Yet the treasures didn't stop there. Right at the temple's center, archaeologists discovered a square pit filled with astonishing valuables that left everyone speechless. Pearls, bronze rings, and jewelry made from coral, all preserved intact for nearly 1,500 years. This can truly be called a treasure trove, representing not only material wealth, but also the sophistication and richness of life during the Northern Wei Dynasty. In addition, the remaining murals on the temple's walls and ceilings captivated researchers. Their vibrant colors and intricate designs open a window into a dazzling world of Buddhist art, previously known only through books. This discovery marks a new milestone in understanding the cultural, religious, and artistic development of this region. Li Shuyun, a researcher from the Shanxi Archaeological Institute, commented that the temple is more than just a historical site, it opens a new door for studying Northern Wei Buddhist architecture and culture. This means that the mysteries of Chinese history will gradually be uncovered, helping us better understand the origins, traditions, and evolution of one of the world's most brilliant civilizations. Are you excited to know that in a city you might only see on a map, there exists such a priceless heritage? From the gilded Buddha statues to the sparkling pearl treasures, all tell a story of prosperity, religion, and art from a once flourishing dynasty. This is the story of a 1,500-year-old ancient temple, where time seems to have paused to protect priceless values for future generations. Fascinating, isn't it? The suspended coffin in an ancient tomb, a strange mystery from 15th century Nanjing, China. Have you ever heard a story about a coffin floating in mid-air? It sounds like something out of a ghost movie, but it actually happened, 100% real, in Nanjing, China, in October 2005. At that time, workers were building a dormitory on the campus of a college called Zhengde. At first, they thought they had just uncovered a regular tomb, but little did they know, it was an incredibly special ancient tomb filled with mysteries that even archaeologists were left utterly amazed by. This tomb is located about 5 feet above the ground, built from bricks dating back to the Ming Dynasty, around 1403 to 1424, during the reign of Emperor Yongle. It's a structure over 23 feet long, with 3 connected chambers and a vaulted ceiling more than 6.5 feet high. It has survived intact for hundreds of years. Pretty impressive, right? But what's even more astonishing isn't just the tomb itself. In the middle chamber, they discovered a coffin that wasn't resting underground like usual. It was actually suspended in mid-air. This coffin, nearly 10 feet long, was hanging by 4 very sturdy iron chains, each about 230 feet long, stretched from the 4 corners of the walls to the 4 corners of the coffin. Do you know why the ancient builders did this? It's hard to say. I don't know either. But experts quickly realized this was no coincidence. It likely relates to Taoist beliefs, especially the practice of cultivating immortality. In ancient China, people believed that placing a body high above the ground would help the soul escape earthly bonds, allowing it to fly freely and achieve immortality. Sounds mystical, doesn't it? And that's not all. Inside the tomb, there was also an oil lamp that has reportedly been burning continuously for centuries without ever going out. It's hard to believe, but it's true. Some believe this eternal flame serves as a guiding light for the deceased's soul, helping it safely cross over to the afterlife without getting lost. Just imagine that scene at night. Deep inside the tomb, the flickering, everlasting flame creates an eerie yet sacred atmosphere. Isn't that both spooky and fascinating? Eventually, thanks to an inscribed stone tablet found inside the tomb, archaeologists identified the occupant as Yang Qing, a famous eunuch during the Ming Dynasty under Emperor Chengzu. This information not only sheds light on the tomb's owner, but also opens up stories about the religious beliefs and customs of the Ming era. This discovery isn't just a routine archaeological dig. It's a journey into the cultural and spiritual values deeply embedded in ancient Chinese history. If you love mysteries and are passionate about exploring history and culture through ancient tales, this is definitely a discovery you can't miss. A floating coffin, an eternal oil lamp, and Taoist secrets of immortality, all combine to create a vivid, magical picture of a past era that still fascinates and intrigues people today. So, what do you think about this story? Could it be true that the soul of the ancient occupant freely floats in the air? Or is it simply an unusual way the ancients preserved the body? Leave your thoughts below, and let's discuss. The 2,500-year-old emperor's tomb, containing timeless treasures that captivate humanity. Did you know that nearly 50 years ago, China shook the world of archaeology by discovering one of the most massive ancient tombs, filled with countless mysteries and incredibly rare treasures? This was the water tomb of Zong Ho Yi, the modest king of the state of Zong, a vassal kingdom during the Zhou dynasty over 2,500 years ago. The story of this tomb not only awakened a small forgotten kingdom buried underground, but also completely changed how we view the art, technology, and history of the Warring States period. Imagine this. In the late 1970s, while the Chinese military was blasting through a mountain to build barracks at the ancient city of Suzhou, the homeland of the legendary Yan Emperor Shennong, they noticed something unusual. Soil color and texture totally different from the surrounding area. An archaeological team was immediately dispatched to the site. They had to move nearly 50 large stone slabs and a thick layer of peat to reach the tomb, which was 43 feet deep, covered an area of more than 2,370 square feet and was completely submerged underwater. From there, a mysterious historical story began to unfold. The tomb's owner was none other than Zong Ho Yi, the king of the state of Zong, a small but very important country during the Warring States period. Although few written records remain about him, this tomb has made both him and the state of Zong famous worldwide. What truly excited archaeologists were the treasures inside. First, there was a wooden coffin weighing up to 7 tons, the heaviest ancient coffin ever discovered in the world. Surrounding the main coffin were 21 smaller coffins containing the remains of young beauties, believed to be dancers sacrificed to serve the king in the afterlife. Just that story alone sends chills down your spine, right? But that's not all. Inside the water tomb were more than 15,000 artifacts of various sizes, including over 6,200 made of bronze. The crown jewel among them was a bronze drum bass weighing nearly 440 pounds, standing half a meter tall. Modern artisans admire it as a masterpiece of ancient craftsmanship. It may sound simple, but the amazing fact is that even with today's technology, no one has been able to replicate or fake this drum bass. Additionally, the tomb housed the largest and most complete set of bronze bells ever found in China. Weighing over 5,500 pounds in total, the set consists of 65 bells of unique sizes and sounds, arranged on a 3-tier frame supported by bronze warrior statues. This is truly an incredible work of art and engineering. Hundreds of lifelike bronze dragon statues coil around the treasures, creating a mysterious and breathtaking scene that even experts find baffling. They can't determine exactly how many dragons are there. And it's not just art. The tomb also contains a massive weapons cache with more than 4,000 arrowheads and many types of swords, spears, and crossbows, holding immense value for the study of pre-Qin military history. So you see, this tomb is not just a burial site for a king, but a treasure trove preserving the cultural essence, craftsmanship, and history that we're rarely lucky enough to find. Terrifying recent archaeological discoveries that shocked scientists. Mummy bathing in Glacier on Mexico's highest mountain peak for 30 years. Have you ever imagined the scene of a mummy lying exposed in the middle of a glacier atop the highest mountain peak, covered in snow all year round? This isn't from a horror movie or a history documentary. It's a real event that just happened on the summit of Pico de Orizaba, the highest mountain in Mexico, standing at 18,406 feet above sea level, about a 5-hour drive from Mexico City. The story began when a group of experts on a survey expedition discovered a frozen body trapped within the endless white glacier. What made everyone shiver was that this person wasn't wearing any mountaineering gear at all. No specialized boots, no cold weather jacket, not even a backpack or rope, just ordinary clothes, as if they had no intention of climbing one of the most dangerous mountains in the world. The mummy was found about 1,000 feet below the summit, an extremely treacherous and bone-chilling spot. Yet surprisingly, the body remained remarkably well preserved thanks to the natural ice that had kept it frozen for decades, maybe even longer. As soon as the mummy was discovered, scientists began to propose a series of hypotheses. Some believe this might be the final piece of a story about 3 climbers who disappeared more than 55 years ago. Not long ago, 2 other mummies were found near the peak of Pico de Orizaba, and local folklore has passed down tales of 3 missing people. Could this newly discovered mummy be the 3rd person from that fateful climb? It sounds plausible, but things are not that simple. First, the location where this mummy was found does not match where the other 2 were discovered. Second, this person clearly wasn't prepared for mountaineering. No gear, no appropriate clothing, no sign of an explorer at all. It's almost as if they appeared here by some impossible chance or were brought here unintentionally. So, who is this mummy? And why did they die on the glacier in the freezing cold without any protective equipment? Currently, the most reasonable hypothesis supported by experts is that the victim may have died in a plane crash back in 1990, right in the Pico de Orizaba area. According to some records, there was a small plane crash that year, but due to the harsh terrain and snow cover, neither the body nor the wreckage was found until now. This mummy could very well be the victim of that air accident. However, everything is still a big question mark. The identity of this person, the exact cause of death, and whether there are more bodies yet to be discovered, all are still being investigated by scientists and investigators. This story surely sends chills down your spine, right? On this cold, towering mountain where humans can barely survive without specialized gear, a long-buried mystery has suddenly been uncovered beneath layers of ice and snow for decades. What do you think? Is this really a plane crash victim? Or is there a more mysterious, untold story behind this mummy? Leave a comment below so we can decode this mystery together. 800-year-old red-haired mummy coated in copper found in Russia. In a remote, icy, and wild region of northern Russia, where it seems like nothing but endless snow and bone-chilling winds exist, archaeologists recently peeled back the veil of time to excavate a mysterious ancient burial ground. And you won't believe this. Among the mummies resting beneath the frozen soil, one stands out. A man with bright red hair, his entire body covered in a shiny copper coating. Sounds like a scene from a fantasy movie, right? But no, this is 100% real. A total of 34 ancient graves were uncovered in this area. Most of the mummies were covered with copper masks over their faces, a detail that makes identifying them nearly impossible. Yet, what remains from this ancient world is enough to leave scientists stunned. The most remarkable of them all is the red-haired man's mummy, estimated to be around 800 years old. Not only is his hair still strikingly red after centuries, but his body is also coated with copper from chest to toe, as if someone deliberately crafted an armor to escort him to the afterlife. Next to this mummy were a number of unusual artifacts, including an iron axe, a set of animal furs, a copper lock, and dozens of items that seem to have once held great significance in ancient beliefs. But it doesn't end there. Archaeologists also discovered 5 other mummies, a woman, a child, and 3 newborn infants, all wrapped in fur from reindeer, beaver, and bear, combined with copper sheets. This might have been a way the ancients protected the dead from decomposition, or perhaps it was a symbolic religious ritual unknown to us today. However, if you think only the mummies are valuable, you'd be wrong. Among the graves, a rare treasure trove of artifacts was found. A copper bowl originating from Persia, dating back to the 10th or 11th century. Iron knives, silver medals, and even copper bird figurines from the 7th to 9th centuries. All these items indicate that the people here once engaged in trade and cultural exchange with major civilizations thousands of miles away. So, who were they? An isolated tribe? A once glorious culture now lost to history? It's hard to say. But Natalia Fyodorova, a researcher at the Russian Academy of Sciences, shared, they were completely surprised by the large number of mummies found, and what intrigued them the most was that all the mummies were positioned facing the Poli River. This could have a profound religious meaning that we cannot yet explain. Experts are still working to decode this mystery, hoping to uncover clues about the identity, lifestyle, beliefs, and ancient civilization that once thrived in this frozen land. So, what do you think? Why was the red-haired man so carefully equipped? Was he a leader, a great warrior, or someone with a special mission? A 1,000-year-old dumpling, still intact in a Tang Dynasty tomb. Have you ever imagined that the humble dumpling, the same kind we often eat during Lunar New Year or on ordinary days, could survive for over 1,000 years, perfectly preserved in an ancient tomb from China's Tang Dynasty? It sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie, but this is 100% real. In 1959, archaeologists excavating a special burial site in Turpan, located in the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region of China, made a truly remarkable discovery. This tomb wasn't just the resting place of the deceased, it held a treasure trove of traditional foods, including several dumplings that remained surprisingly intact, almost completely undamaged after lying underground for more than a millennium. Just imagine, after centuries, these tiny dumplings have retained their original shape, color, and even texture, from the smooth dough wrapper and the filling inside to the golden hue on the outside, almost exactly like the ones we see today. It's hard to believe, isn't it? In addition to the dumplings, archaeologists found a variety of other traditional pastries and desserts inside the tomb, including mooncakes, sweet treats, and other delicacies. These finds reveal just how rich, refined, and diverse Tang Dynasty cuisine truly was, with incredible attention to detail. At first glance, it might seem impossible that food could be preserved for so long, since most foods spoil rather quickly. However, thanks to the unique climate conditions in Turpan, known for its extreme heat and prolonged droughts, the food dehydrated rapidly, in a way similar to modern freeze-drying techniques. This natural drying process allowed the items to remain preserved over the centuries without decaying. That's why these discoveries are considered priceless, not just to archaeologists, but also to culinary historians and cultural researchers studying ancient Chinese traditions. And you know what? Based on the types of food found in the tomb, experts believe the person buried there likely belonged to the upper class or was quite wealthy. After all, not everyone could afford to be buried with such refined and luxurious delicacies. In ancient times, burying the dead with food and valuable items wasn't just a sign of status. It also reflected the hope that the deceased would live a comfortable, abundant life in the afterworld. This is why, in ancient tombs across Asia, we often find favorite dishes, jewelry, clothing, and other meaningful artifacts buried alongside the dead. So, let me ask you this. In today's world, do you think our traditional foods could survive intact for thousands of years like these did? Or maybe discoveries like this will inspire scientists to develop better methods for long-term food preservation that we can use in modern life. I think this isn't just a story about archaeology or cuisine, it's a fascinating journey back through time, showing the deep connection between people and their culture, captured in every dish and artifact, no matter how many centuries have passed. How about you? If you could explore an ancient Asian dish that's still perfectly preserved, what would you want to see? As for me, I'd love to see a 1,000-year-old boiled egg. That's right, I'm a die-hard egg lover, and I'm genuinely curious what one would look like after all that time. Millennia-old remains found, resting in a Viking death ship. Did you know that buried deep within modern-day Sweden lies a 1,000-year-old secret still waiting to be fully uncovered? A rare and astonishing archaeological discovery was recently made in the village of Gamla Uppsala, capturing the attention of both experts and history lovers alike. It all began during a church expansion project when workers unexpectedly stumbled upon two ancient graves shaped exactly like ships, a unique burial type not everyone is familiar with, known as Viking ship burials. At first, people assumed they had simply found abandoned old boats. But as excavation began, an incredible truth was revealed. Inside the ships were not just wooden hulls, but human remains and valuable personal items. In one of the ship graves, archaeologists discovered the skeleton of a man, buried alongside the remains of a horse and a dog. According to experts, these animals were likely beloved companions or were intentionally buried with their owner as part of a distinctive cultural practice. But what truly shocked everyone were the grave goods found beside the remains. A sharp sword, a spear, a sturdy shield, and even an intricately decorated comb. These items made it clear that this was no ordinary individual. According to historians, only the wealthiest and most powerful people of the time were granted the honor of a ship burial, a true symbol of high social status. And the story gets even more fascinating. Archaeologists revealed that the ships used for these burials weren't symbolic replicas. They were real, fully functional Viking ships, constructed with extraordinary craftsmanship. Made of wood and fastened using iron rivets in traditional Viking style, these ships demonstrate the advanced boat-building skills and organizational capability of Viking society. The second grave, although not as well preserved as the first, was actually larger and may have held the remains of two individuals. This raises intriguing questions about the relationship between those buried together. Perhaps they were close family members or trusted comrades in arms. Anton Seiler, the lead archaeologist on the excavation, explained that this is a rare and invaluable opportunity for Swedish archaeology to dive deeper into Viking burial customs. With today's modern analytical technologies, researchers hope to uncover more about the lives, rituals, and social standing of those laid to rest in these extraordinary ship graves. Knut Pasha, a cultural heritage expert from Norway, noted that ship burials were the ultimate symbol of power and wealth in ancient Scandinavia. Those buried in such vessels may have been kings, queens, noble warriors, or other highly influential figures in Viking society. But for now, all of this remains speculation. Who exactly lies in these death ships? Were they truly rulers or elite warriors? Or do they hold secrets yet to be revealed? Only time and science will tell. Hopefully, future research will help us uncover the full story behind these incredible Viking burials. A 1,000-year-old tomb beneath the pitch-black water. In ancient China, burial customs were held in the highest regard, especially among the nobility, where funerals were not just a farewell to the dead, but also a way to display status and power. As a result, many tombs were built with extraordinary care, filled with treasures, some of which are now considered priceless cultural relics. But this also meant many of these tombs were hidden under layers of time and mystery. And when they are accidentally unearthed, they often send shockwaves through the archaeological world. This strange and fascinating story began back in the 1970s, in a remote village in Jiangsu Province, China. At the time, a local villager was digging a well in his courtyard when he encountered something strange. At a depth of about 10 feet, he hit a hard layer of earth, and suddenly, a thick stream of pitch-black water surged upward. The man assumed it was just dirty underground water and didn't think much of it. But no matter where he dug, the same thing happened. More black water and more of that unbreakable hard layer beneath. Eventually, the mystery faded into obscurity and the incident was forgotten. That is, until 20 years later, in the 1990s, when the area was being redeveloped. A government geologist was sent to survey the land and immediately noticed something odd. In the same courtyard where the well had once been dug, large pits of black water still remained. What's more, strange green-blue reflections could be seen shimmering from the stones beneath the surface. Sensing this was no ordinary geological phenomenon, he filed a report and invited archaeologists to investigate. After conducting a detailed survey, the team uncovered a shocking truth. Beneath that black water was an ancient tomb. Soon after, they confirmed the burial site belonged to a descendant of the Sema family, a powerful clan during the Three Kingdoms period of ancient China. The person buried there was none other than Sima Huang, the grandson of the legendary Sima Yi, a military strategist often considered the equal of Zhuge Liang. Sima Yi's descendants later went on to establish the Western Jin dynasty after overthrowing the state of Wei. The excavation revealed 9 tombs, stunning the entire archaeological team. According to historical records, in the year 280 AD, Sima Yan became emperor and appointed Sima Huang as governor of the Jiangsu region. In 296 AD, Sima Huang died from illness and was buried with great care. However, since historical texts never recorded the exact location of his tomb, it remained lost for over 1,000 years, until now, thanks to that mysterious black water. But the excitement was mixed with regret. Of the 9 tombs uncovered, 8 were identified as reburial sites, most of which had been looted long ago. Many of the original treasures buried with the dead had vanished. Thankfully, a few valuable artifacts remained, offering crucial clues for archaeologists. These relics not only reflect the lifestyle and beliefs of ancient Chinese nobility, but also open new doors for deeper research into the Three Kingdoms period and the Western Jin dynasty. Even though most of the grave goods were lost to history, the discovery of Sima Huang's tomb marks a major milestone in Chinese archaeology. It solves a historical mystery that had remained unanswered for millennia and proves that sometimes seemingly trivial things like murky black water from an old well can hide monumental secrets of the past. And surely, this story will continue to captivate generations to come. After all, who knows what other ancient secrets still lie buried beneath the deep, silent earth, waiting for their moment to emerge. Mass grave of 28 bodies found in Sudan, a chilling discovery of sacrifice and betrayal. A mass grave, yet not one holding ordinary civilians, but military officers who once dared to rise against a brutal regime. Could such a story be true? If it sounds like fiction, then let me take you to Sudan, where an archaeological discovery has just been announced, one that has shocked the world and raised unsettling questions about the dark corners of history long kept hidden. Right in the heart of Omdurman city, 28 human remains have been unearthed, all belonging to men who risked their lives in an attempt to overthrow former President Omar al-Bashir back in 1990. But what's even more painful than the grave itself is the story behind it, a tale of betrayal, violence, and the heavy cost of resistance. The excavation spanned 3 weeks, involving 22 experts from various fields working tirelessly under the scorching sun and the weight of a painful past. Led by prosecutor Taglsir al-Heber, the team uncovered not just bones, but undeniable proof of a bloody conspiracy that had been buried, both literally and figuratively, for decades. At least 28 of these remains belonged to soldiers who had the courage to stand up to Bashir. They were captured and brutally executed after the failed 1990 coup attempt. To you, this might sound like just another historical event, but for the people of Sudan, it is a wound that has never healed. The Bashir regime, notorious for its dictatorship and cruelty, didn't hesitate to crush anyone who dared to challenge its power. This grave is not just a final resting place, it's a haunting reminder of a dark era when human lives were disposable and moral values were traded for fear and violence. And did you know? This is only the second mass grave discovered in over 3 decades since Bashir took power in 1989. What's more disturbing is that many victims weren't just coup soldiers. Millions of civilians also lost their lives during bloody wars and the horrific genocide in Darfur. When viewed through the lens of official reports, these tragedies might seem like unfortunate accidents, but opposition groups claim otherwise, that these were deliberate actions aimed at silencing dissent and fortifying Bashir's grip on power. One particularly alarming detail: the regime at the time reported that 55 soldiers had drowned when their boat capsized while crossing a river. But the truth behind that explanation may point to a calculated massacre, with the real number of victims possibly exceeding 100. This is a brutal story of oppression, where human lives were reduced to pawns in a ruthless game of power. Have you ever wondered if efforts like this, exhuming graves and uncovering the truth, can truly bring justice to the victims and their families? I believe that while we can't change the past, shedding light on such atrocities is a crucial first step toward acknowledging pain and ensuring that the blood-soaked lessons of history are never forgotten. Massive solid gold treasures discovered by archaeologists shock the world. A $1 trillion gold mountain hidden inside a 5,000-year-old temple in India. In India, a land often hailed as the cradle of magnificent ancient civilizations, there exists a sacred temple that has stunned the entire world, but it's not because of its grand architecture or mystical religious rituals. No, what makes it truly extraordinary is the fact that beneath its ancient stone lies an actual mountain of gold. This is the Sri Padmanabhaswamy Temple, located in Thiruvananthapuram, the capital city of Kerala, India. The name might be a bit long, right? But the story behind it is even longer, stretching back over 5,000 years according to belief. From a distance, the Sri Padmanabhaswamy temple already resembles a massive treasure with its golden exterior shimmering in the sunlight. But don't be fooled by appearances. The real gold lies hidden deep underground, inside secret vaults that have sparked rumors and legends for thousands of years. According to legend, over many generations of kings who ruled the region of Travancore, countless treasures were brought to the temple as offerings to the gods: gold, silver, gemstones, jewelry, all buried beneath the temple as a sacred promise to the divine. And it wasn't until 2011, following a groundbreaking ruling by India's Supreme Court, that this thousand-year-old secret was officially unlocked. That year, control of the temple was transferred from the royal family of Travancore to the government. A special committee was formed, and soon 6 massive treasure vaults, labeled Vaults A through F, began to be explored. Now, what do you think happens when you open a door that's been sealed for thousands of years? The answer? Treasures worth an estimated $22 billion in gold, gemstones, and jewelry were uncovered. And that was just from Vaults C through F. Vault A? It required advanced modern technology just to access. But the most jaw-dropping vault is Vault B, the one that has yet to be opened. Rumors claim it holds a treasure worth over $1 trillion, equivalent to the combined GDP of several nations. However, Vault B remains unopened to this day. Some believe breaking it open would trigger an ancient curse. Others say the government is hesitant because no one truly knows what lies inside. Do you think there could really be an unimaginable treasure hidden within? I won't dare to guess, because what's already been found in the other vaults is enough to leave experts speechless. For example, a gold chain measuring 17.7 feet, 1,764 pounds of gold coins, 2,000 rubies, a 4 feet tall golden statue encrusted with emeralds, a diamond-studded crown, and even solid gold elephant statues. So really, if someone says Vault B might contain a massive treasure, who could argue otherwise? But with all the treasure that has been discovered, one major question arises: what should be done with it? This remains a hotly debated topic. Many citizens believe the treasure should be distributed to help the poor. After all, it was donated over centuries by ordinary people out of faith and sacrifice. However, experts argue that this treasure is a priceless cultural heritage and must be preserved intact. A national museum might be the most balanced solution, allowing the public to admire the artifacts while ensuring their historical value remains protected. The Treasure of Nimrude, a 2,600-year-old royal secret unearthed. There are some treasures whose value cannot be measured in money. Some discoveries leave the entire world holding its breath, and the Treasure of Nimrude is one of them. Not just because of its vast wealth in gold and jewels, but because of the ancient royal secrets it has preserved beneath the earth of northern Iraq. Hailed as the largest treasure ever discovered in the Middle East, the Treasure of Nimrude was buried deep within the ancient city of Nimrude, once the glorious capital of the Assyrian Empire, one of the most brilliant civilizations of Mesopotamia. The city was founded in the 13th century BCE by King Shalmaneser I. At its peak, Nimrud was the political, religious, and artistic center of the empire, referred to as the beating heart of Assyrian civilization. But after more than 700 years, Nimrud was brutally destroyed in 612 BCE during a massive war between the Assyrians and the Babylonians, marking the end of a golden era. It seemed everything had been lost to the ashes of history, until more than 2,400 years later, the past unexpectedly spoke again. In 1845, British archaeologist Austen Henry Layard began the first excavations in Nimrud. During his work, he unearthed numerous bas-reliefs, stone statues, and gold and silver jewelry. These findings shocked the archaeological world at the time, but in truth, they were only scratching the surface. Then, in the 1950s, another British archaeologist, Max Mallowan, continued the exploration. He discovered an ancient palace chamber believed to have housed Assyrian royal women. Remarkably, much of it remained intact, from the architecture and layout to clear traces of the culture that once ruled a vast region. But the real breakthrough came in 1988, marking a true earthquake in the world of archaeology. That year, Iraqi archaeologist Muzahim Mahmud, while researching an ancient temple complex, stumbled upon a passageway leading underground. There, he discovered an elaborate underground tomb complex filled with an astonishing array of precious artifacts. But that wasn't all. Mahmud would go on to excavate 3 more tombs, one of which belonged to the queen of King Ashur-nasir-pal II, one of the most powerful rulers in Assyrian history. Each tomb contained hundreds of gold artifacts, rings, necklaces, earrings, hairpins, crowns, and other royal items. These weren't just beautiful, they were masterpieces of craftsmanship, testifying to the artistic and technological sophistication of the ancient Assyrians. The treasure of Nimrude is so priceless that just a few years ago, a plan to exhibit the artifacts in Germany had to be completely cancelled. And the reason? No insurance company was willing to cover it. Sounds unbelievable, right? But it's true. The potential loss was simply incalculable. So yes, in terms of sheer material value, it's enormous. But in terms of historical, cultural, and heritage value, it is absolutely priceless. The solid gold treasure in King Tutankhamun's tomb and 3,000 artifacts that shocked the world for a century. If there's one treasure that made the entire world hold its breath for its sheer wealth, mystery, and preservation through the millennia, it must be the tomb of Nebkheperur Tutankhamun, the young pharaoh whose legacy continues to astonish the modern world. The story began on November 4, 1922, under the scorching sun of the Valley of the Kings, Luxor, Egypt. A team of archaeologists, led by British expert Howard Carter, stumbled upon one of the greatest discoveries in the history of archaeology. It wasn't the largest tomb ever found, nor did it belong to Egypt's most powerful pharaoh. But King Tutankhamun's tomb became the most famous solid gold treasure of all time. What made the tomb truly exceptional was its near-perfect preservation after over 3,000 years buried beneath the sands of the desert. The moment Carter and his team stepped into the antechamber, they were stunned. In front of them were gold-covered chariots, ornate furniture, weapons, and countless exquisitely crafted royal belongings. But that was just the beginning. At the heart of the tomb, the burial chamber, stood 3 nested coffins, with the innermost one made entirely of solid gold, weighing over 220 pounds. Yes, you heard that right. Over 220 pounds of pure gold, not to mention golden statues, treasure chests, jewelry, and countless priceless burial items. Over the next 10 years, Howard Carter painstakingly cataloged and preserved nearly 3,000 artifacts from the tomb, an effort that required exceptional care and deep knowledge of ancient Egyptian culture. Each item removed was like a puzzle piece, helping reconstruct a vivid picture of royal life in Egypt over 3,300 years ago. To this day, experts still can't put an exact price on the treasure discovered in King Tut's tomb. Beyond the staggering material value, the historical and cultural significance is immeasurable. If auctioned piece by piece, the total value could easily reach tens of billions of US dollars, and some items are simply priceless. What's more impressive is that the artifacts from Tutankhamun's tomb haven't just sat silently in museums. They've traveled the world, exhibited in the UK, France, the US, Japan, and more. Each time they appeared, millions lined up just for a glimpse, with many moved to tears by the experience. Did you know? Despite dying very young, at just 18 or 19 years old, King Tutankhamun is the most mentioned pharaoh among more than 170 rulers of ancient Egypt. Not because of military conquests, but because his tomb opened a doorway through time, giving future generations an unparalleled look into one of the greatest civilizations the world has ever known. And strangely enough, not long after the tomb was opened, a string of mysterious deaths struck some members of the excavation team, sparking rumors of the pharaoh's curse. No conclusive explanation has ever been found, but clearly the mysteries surrounding King Tut's treasure haven't ended. So what do you think? If given the chance, would you dare step into a 3,000-year-old tomb filled with treasures worth a fortune and legends that chill to the bone? Because maybe the real treasure isn't just the gold. It's the story that's been waiting silently for thousands of years to be told. The $500 million mountain of gold in an 88,000-pound treasure ship beneath the ocean. What would you think if I told you that hidden beneath the ocean lies a gold mine worth over $500 million, resting silently on the seafloor for more than 350 years? Sounds unbelievable, right? Then let me tell you the real-life treasure hunt that's more thrilling than any Indiana Jones movie. The incredible tale of the legendary ship Nuestra Señora de Atocha and the man who refused to give up, Mel Fisher. Let's go back in time to the year 1622, the golden era of the Spanish Empire. The Atocha, one of Spain's most prized galleons, was loaded with treasures plundered from across the colonies, Colombia, Peru, Mexico, and Venezuela. The cargo was so massive that it took nearly 2 months just to fully load the ship. But fate had other plans. Shortly after leaving port, a fierce hurricane struck the Caribbean, sending the Atocha and several other ships to the bottom of the sea, about 70 miles west of Florida. Inside the doomed vessel were records of 24 tons of silver, including 1,038 silver bars, 180,000 silver coins, 582 copper ingots, hundreds of chests of indigo, tobacco, cannons, and countless items of gold, silver, emeralds, and intricately crafted jewelry. Just imagining it is enough to understand how massive this treasure really was. Immediately after the disaster, Spain dispatched 5 large ships to recover the lost treasure, but all efforts failed. The Atocha had come to rest at a depth of around 55 feet, becoming a mystery that challenged explorers for centuries. It wasn't until over 300 years later that one man, Mel Fisher, emerged as the face of the greatest treasure hunt of the 20th century. In 1962, Fisher, along with his wife and children, began scouring the Florida coast, driven by a dream of finding riches beneath the waves. After years of searching, he learned about the Atocha and poured his heart, soul, finances, and even blood, sweat, and tears into the hunt. Then in 1975, a breakthrough. His son Dirk discovered 3 silver bars and 5 bronze cannons, believed to be from the Atocha. In 1980, Fisher located the wreck of Santa Margarita, another lost ship, recovering over $20 million in gold and silver. But the moment that changed everything came on July 20th, 1985. That day, Fisher's other son, Kane, called him in overwhelming excitement. "Dad, we found the Atocha!" And sure enough, there it was. Beneath the deep blue sea lay the massive treasure, about 88,000 pounds of gold and silver, over 1,000 silver bars, ancient gold coins, and a mesmerizing 70 pounds of Colombian emeralds shimmering in the ocean light. Estimated value? $500 million, a number so staggering it leaves people speechless. But treasure doesn't come without trouble. As soon as the news broke, the state of Florida tried to claim ownership and demanded 25% of the treasure. A legal battle ensued, dragging on for 8 years. Finally, in 1992, the U.S. Supreme Court issued a landmark ruling. The entire treasure rightfully belonged to Mel Fisher. Today, many of the Atocha's artifacts are displayed at the Mel Fisher Maritime Museum in Key West, Florida, attracting millions of visitors from around the world. And in 2014, the legendary ship was officially listed in the Guinness World Records as the most valuable shipwreck ever discovered. Gives you goosebumps, doesn't it? But as you can see, the story of Nuestra Señora de Atocha is not just about treasure. It's a timeless symbol of faith, persistence, and the relentless pursuit of what once seemed impossible. A treasure of 1,000 tons of gold and over 41,000 tons of silver in South America. Have you ever imagined that nestled among the dry, windswept mountains of South America lies a massive natural treasure? Not the kind of treasure hidden in pirate chests, but a vast reserve of precious metals that nature has been carefully wrapping up for millions of years, waiting for the right people to discover it at the right time. And that's exactly what's happening right now at the border between Argentina and Chile. A recent geological discovery has sent shockwaves through the global mining industry. The Vicuña region, stretching from San Juan province in Argentina to the Atacama region in Chile, has just been confirmed as one of the largest known deposits of copper, gold, and silver on Earth. But what might surprise you even more are the specific numbers. 13 million metric tons of copper, 32 million ounces of gold, which is roughly 1,000 US tons, and 659 million ounces of silver, equivalent to over 41,000 US tons. No exaggeration, this is quite literally the Earth's treasure trove. Currently, the entire Vicuña region is under the control of 2 mining giants, Lundin Mining and BHP. All eyes are now on 2 major mining projects, Filo del Sol and Josemaria. And here's the hot news, Both have been ranked among the top 10 most promising copper mines in the world. And it's not just about copper. The quantities of gold and silver found here are also off the charts. Jack London, president and CEO of London Mining, called it a world-class site and confidently stated, "This discovery is not just a turning point for Vicuña, but it also reveals an incredibly high-quality mineral core." At this point, you might be thinking, well, all that gold and silver is probably just for making jewelry, right? If that's what you thought, you'd be wrong. Let me tell you how valuable these resources really are and see if it changes your perspective. Copper, gold, and silver aren't just beautiful. They're essential in modern technology. They are critical materials used in the production of microchips, communication devices, spacecraft, jet engines, and countless electronics you use every single day. If that doesn't blow your mind, I don't know what will. What fascinates me even more than the economic value is how this treasure came to be. Sounds strange, I know, but it was the result of massive geological plate collisions millions of years ago. Molten magma from deep within the Earth rose to the surface, carrying with it superheated fluids rich in dissolved metals. These fluids seeped into cracks in the rock and over time cooled down to form veins of precious metals. Then came erosion, water flow, sedimentation, slowly shaping these alluvial mineral deposits into the incredible ore bodies we see today. But, like everything in life, this treasure has two sides. While the discovery sounds amazing, the race to mine it comes with a heavy cost. To access and extract these resources, massive infrastructure must be built. Roads, excavation zones, giant machinery. Entire untouched mountain regions could be transformed into industrial zones. And that's when the environmental question becomes unavoidable. Nature took millions of years to create this gift. Humans could wipe it out in just a few decades. Behind the dazzling numbers and billion-dollar estimates lies the very real threat of destroying the very land that made us rich in the first place. So, what would you choose? Would you sacrifice nature for a massive treasure like this? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Let's talk about it. A $3.5 million treasure, 66 pounds of pure gold found beneath an Austrian villa. Some days start off just like any other. You go to work without expecting anything out of the ordinary. But then, out of nowhere, luck drops right into your lap, turning an ordinary plumber into a millionaire with just one swing of a shovel. As unbelievable as it sounds, this story is 100% true. It happened in late 2024 in Vienna, the capital of Austria. At the time, a plumber was renovating the basement of an old villa in the city center when he noticed a piece of rope sticking out from the concrete floor. At first, he thought it was an old electrical wire or some leftover debris. He tried to pull it out, but it wouldn't budge. So he grabbed a pickaxe and shovel to dig it up. And guess what? That decision changed his life forever. After a few swings, the concrete began to crack, revealing a rusted metal chest that had clearly aged over time. At that moment, his heart probably started pounding, because whatever was buried down there, it clearly wasn't a joke. Using all his strength, he forced the chest open. What he saw next was beyond belief. 66 pounds of pure gold coins, gleaming despite having been buried underground for decades. Even more astonishing, the coins were stamped with the image of the legendary composer Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, Austria's national icon and source of pride. The entire hoard was estimated to be worth $3.5 million. Yes, you heard that right. That's a massive fortune. What makes the story even crazier is that several other workers had previously done renovations in that same basement, but none of them noticed that small piece of rope. Maybe it really does take the right person to see what others overlook. And even more lucky for the plumber, under Austrian law, discovered treasures are split 50-50 between the finder and the property owner. As a result, he legally pocketed around £1 million, over $1.25 million, a sum most people can only dream of. A friend of his later shared the story on a German TV show, leaving audiences in both Austria and Germany stunned by this stroke of incredible fortune. But one big question remains. Why was such a large treasure buried under the basement of a villa in the first place? Experts believe the coins were most likely hidden during World War II, when wealthy European families were trying to protect their assets from bombs, looting, and political chaos. When the original owner either went missing or never made it back, the treasure remained untouched for nearly a century, until this born-to-be-rich plumber stumbled upon it. Now imagine this. You go outside tomorrow morning to dig in your yard, and you see a rope sticking out of the ground. Would you pull it? I think you would, because who knows, you might just be the next millionaire. The 6 most terrifying archaeological discoveries that scientists still can't explain. The 1,000-year-old double dwarfism skeleton discovered in Poland. Can you believe it? In an ancient cemetery near a monastery in Poland, archaeologists uncovered an incredibly unique skeleton. So unique, in fact, that it's completely unprecedented in the history of archaeology. This is the story of a man who lived over 1,000 years ago, whose body showed signs of not just one, but 2 different types of dwarfism, a condition so rare that scientists were stunned when they first laid eyes on it. It all began in the village of Łekno, located in west-central Poland. If we rewind time back to the 9th to 11th centuries, this area was once a fortified town, complete with a small church and a relatively bustling population. By the 12th century, the Cistercian order arrived and built a large monastery. The cemetery beside the monastery eventually became the resting place for both monks and local residents, used from around the year 1450 all the way into the 16th century. In 1990, archaeologists began excavating the cemetery and uncovered over 400 graves. But the real mystery didn't surface until they closely examined a skeleton labeled W3/66/90. This was the skeleton of a man who lived sometime between the 9th and 11th centuries, and what shocked researchers was that he suffered from 2 distinct forms of dwarfism, something never before documented in any ancient remains. Led by expert Machak, the research team created a 3D reconstruction of the skeleton for detailed analysis. The results were astonishing. The skull was asymmetrical, the spinal canal narrow, the ribs were short, and the pelvis flared outward. All classic signs of achondroplasia, the most common type of dwarfism, which causes shortened limbs but a normally sized or even larger torso. But that wasn't all. Researchers also found signs like outward turning elbows and a high-arched palate, hallmarks of a second, extremely rare genetic condition known as Léri-Weill dyschondrosteosis. Complicated name, right? This disorder also affects height and bone development, making this man's body truly one of a kind. According to Francesco Galassi, a paleopathologist at Flinders University in Australia, while it's medically possible for someone to have both conditions today, this is the first time such a case has ever been discovered in the field of archaeology. To learn more about the life of this extraordinary man, archaeologists are now analyzing the carbon and nitrogen isotopes in his bones, a technique that can reveal details about his diet. With that information, they hope to better understand how he lived, what he ate, and perhaps even how he died. Another fascinating detail: although he was not buried with any grave goods, which was quite common at the time, his grave was carefully and properly prepared. This suggests that he was respected and remembered by his community, not shunned or abandoned due to his physical condition. He may have been a lay brother, or perhaps even a monk who lived at the monastery. It's hard to say for certain, but one thing is clear. In a medieval society often marked by prejudice, being granted such a dignified burial speaks volumes about the position he held in his community. In the end, the story of this double dwarfism skeleton is not only a fascinating scientific discovery, it's also a rare and deeply human glimpse into the lives and compassion of people in the past. So what about you? What would you do if you met someone like him in the modern world? The 41 medieval female skeletons in Wales reveal hardship, broken bones, and untold stories. Have you ever wondered what life was really like for women during the Middle Ages? Was it as peaceful and romantic as it's often portrayed in movies? Or was it a daily struggle with harsh land, illness, and social inequality? Most of us probably have only a vague idea, but recently, a groundbreaking archaeological discovery in southern Wales, United Kingdom, has shed new light on the truth behind that historical curtain. During an excavation led by researchers from Cardiff University, 41 human skeletons dating from around 500 to 600 AD were uncovered. What's especially remarkable is that most of them were women, living during the early medieval period, a time for which written records are extremely scarce. According to Andy Seaman, the lead researcher, these remains come from an era where we have very few clues to follow. That's why every skeleton found is as valuable as gold. So what makes this discovery so extraordinary? First, the evidence of just how hard life was for these women. Analysis of the bones revealed signs of arthritis, joint degeneration, and even broken bones, some of which had healed while others had not. One case even showed a broken neck, likely caused by a farming accident. There was no sign of war or violence, just the consequences of a risky, physically demanding life as agricultural laborers. Another surprising finding: despite living near the sea, there was no evidence from their bones that they ate fish. This is unusual, as in most coastal communities, fish is a staple part of the diet. Why not here? Could it be they lacked access to fishing? Or were there cultural, religious, or social restrictions that prohibited them from eating fish? These questions remain unanswered. Of course, not everyone buried in this cemetery lived the same kind of life. Some graves were more elaborately constructed, with signs suggesting the individuals may have belonged to higher social classes. This raises the possibility that, although most of the population were likely farmers, there may have been contact with other regions, perhaps even with continental Europe. However, as Sema points out, the presence of a few luxury items doesn't mean this was a rich person's cemetery. At that time, the line between rich and poor was not as clear-cut as it is today. Most people were involved in agriculture, and social hierarchy, if it existed, was fragile and fluid. Valuable items might have been bartered, inherited, or simply rare, without necessarily indicating wealth. Human and cattle remains from a Stone Age. Sacrificial ritual unearthed beneath future Intel chip plant. Imagine breaking ground for a multi-billion-dollar semiconductor factory, only to literally dig up 6,000 years of history. Sounds like something out of an Indiana Jones movie, right? But this is no Hollywood script. It's a very real discovery, made just recently in Germany, where Intel is preparing to build Europe's largest semiconductor plants. The site lies near the city of Magdeburg, about 100 miles west of Berlin. Before construction could begin, the State Office for Heritage Management and Archaeology of Saxony-Anhalt, LDA, conducted a survey of the 740-acre area. No one expected what they found: two massive burial mounds from the Neolithic era, hidden beneath a small hill within the industrial zone. And that's just the beginning of this mysterious story. Beneath the mounds, archaeologists uncovered two timber mortuary chambers built with remarkably distinct architecture. Buried under thousands of years of earth were human remains and cattle skeletons, arranged in ways that resembled carts or plows, as if humans and animals were embarking together on a final journey to the afterlife. Chilling, right? Because this wasn't a typical grave. It was a ceremonial burial site, likely used for religious sacrifices that held immense meaning in prehistoric life. According to the LDA, cattle at that time were not just livestock. They were the most valuable assets, essential to survival, a community's lifeline and insurance. Sacrificing cattle, and possibly even human lives, was seen as a way to honor the gods, praying for abundant harvests and security. One of the two tombs is believed to belong to the Ballberg culture, which existed in central Germany from around 4100 to 3600 BCE. This was one of the earliest known communities to practice organized farming, animal husbandry, and ritual ceremonies. The tomb itself is trapezoid-shaped, constructed from wood, and features a ceremonial passageway, likely used for ritual processions or to transport offerings and the deceased. Along this corridor, archaeologists discovered the remains of young cattle, aged about 2 to 3 years, carefully arranged in pairs. This level of planning and symmetry suggests a highly organized, sacred ritual. In addition, the team identified the skeleton of a man aged 35 to 40, buried in the center of the chamber, possibly a tribal leader, shaman, or sacrificial figure chosen for this solemn ceremony. But the discoveries didn't stop there. Researchers also found a ditch running alongside the ritual path and multiple other burial mounds scattered across the area, some dating back nearly 4,000 years. This indicates that Eulenberg was not just an ordinary burial site, it was a ceremonial hub that had been used consistently and systematically for millennia. A 25,000-year-old pyramid in Indonesia, older than Giza, and it might rewrite human history. Have you ever thought the Egyptian pyramids were the oldest structures ever built by humans? If so, sorry to burst your bubble, because researchers have just made a shocking claim. They may have discovered a pyramid buried deep underground in Indonesia that could date back as far as 25,000 years ago. Sounds unbelievable, right? but all the current archaeological data is pointing toward this earth-shattering possibility. The site that's turning the archaeological world upside down is called Gunung Padang, a hill located on the island of West Java, Indonesia. From the outside, it just looks like an ordinary mountain, but beneath it lies what could be a prehistoric architectural wonder. If confirmed, it would completely upend the timeline of other great structures like Stonehenge or the pyramids of Giza. Using advanced archaeological technologies like electrical resistivity tomography, ERT, ground-penetrating radar, GPR, and seismic tomography, ST, a team of experts has revealed that Gunung Padang is actually a multi-layered pyramid, built in 4 stages over thousands of years, starting as far back as the Paleolithic era, possibly even at the end of the last ice age. And that's not all. Carbon dating of organic soil samples taken from the inner core of the structure suggests that the first phase of construction could have begun around 25,000 BCE, continuing until roughly 14,000 BCE. This deepest layer, known as Cluster 4, lies within a natural volcanic hill, but it appears to have been carved and reshaped by humans to form the earliest version of a pyramid. Between 7,900 and 6,100 BCE, Cluster 3 was added. It featured stone columns arranged like bricks, showing a clear advancement in construction techniques for that era. Next came Cluster 2, built between 6,000 and 5,500 BCE, followed by Cluster 1, the most recent layer near the surface, constructed between 2,000 and 1,100 BCE. That's the part visible to us today. In other words, each layer of Gunung Padang is like a chapter in a historical book, telling the story of how human thought, technology, and belief evolved from prehistoric times to the early historic period. What has scientists truly astonished is that every stage of the structure shows organized architectural planning. This wasn't a random pile of stones. It was the deliberate work of an ancient, complex civilization that we previously knew nothing about. Even more intriguing, seismic analyses inside the pyramid have revealed deep cavities, hidden chambers, and hollow spaces, suggesting that this site may have served more than just ceremonial or burial purposes. It might have contained secret rooms, possibly used to store knowledge, sacred objects, or other critical elements of this lost civilization. The pharaoh's son-in-law's mummy found intact, after 4,400 years buried beneath the sands. Deep in the heart of the Egyptian desert, where scorching sun and drifting sand seem to whisper only the echoes of long-lost civilizations, a mystery buried for over 160 years has just come back to life. Archaeologists have rediscovered the tomb of Patepsis, a powerful official and the son-in-law of an ancient Egyptian pharaoh, in a remarkably well-preserved state, dating back an astonishing 4,400 years. At first glance, this might seem like just another archaeological find in the land of pyramids. But hold that thought, because the story behind this ancient tomb might just leave you speechless. This isn't merely a burial site. It's the first recorded instance in ancient Egyptian history where a commoner, someone outside the royal bloodline, was granted the rare privilege of marrying a princess. The story dates back to the 1800s, when French archaeologist Auguste Mariette first discovered an exquisitely carved false door, along with a support beam inscribed with details about the life and achievements of Patepsis. However, not long after this initial discovery, the entire tomb complex was swallowed once again by the desert sands, as if nature itself sought to conceal a profound secret. It wasn't until 2022 that a research team from the Czech Institute of Egyptology at Charles University in Prague finally pinpointed the exact location of the tomb, using satellite technology in combination with ancient maps. This year, full-scale excavation efforts began, and what they uncovered stunned the world. The tomb is massive, measuring nearly 138 feet long and about 72 feet wide, an extraordinary size for the Old Kingdom period of Egypt. Inside, the chapel remains intact, the entrance adorned with vividly painted murals, and a corridor descends deep into the earth. Everything about it points to Patepsis being far more than an ordinary man. But most remarkable is what's written on the false door. It reveals that Patepsis was educated within the royal court of Pharaoh Menkaure, the builder of the smallest of the 3 great pyramids at Giza, and later married the daughter of Pharaoh Userkaf, founder of Egypt's 5th dynasty. This marks the first known occasion when someone not of royal birth was allowed to join the pharaoh's family, a truly extraordinary honor in that era. But it doesn't stop there. Patepsis is also believed to have been the first to propose the inclusion of the god Osiris, symbol of life and death, in Egyptian temple worship. This is no small detail, as it laid the foundation for a belief system that would go on to influence thousands of years of Egyptian religious thought. Remarkably, although the tomb had been visited by looters, many priceless artifacts were still found inside, including the mummy of Patepsis himself, placed within a partially open sarcophagus. According to Egyptian anthropologists, the mummy is almost perfectly preserved and is offering new insights into the development of mummification techniques during the Old Kingdom, which spanned from approximately 2700 to 2200 BCE. Even more intriguingly, researchers discovered a mummified fish buried alongside him, likely as part of an ancient funerary ritual. That might seem like a minor detail, but it speaks volumes about the depth of religious belief and the ancient Egyptians' view of the afterlife. Noblewoman's body found in ancient Peruvian tomb still has skin and hair after 5,000 years. If you thought mummification was something only the ancient Egyptians mastered, this latest discovery from Peru is sure to give you chills. In a tomb estimated to be around 5,000 years old, archaeologists have uncovered the remains of a woman whose body still retains skin, fingernails, and even hair, a remarkably rare and almost bizarre preservation given the harsh climate of South America. This stunning discovery was made at the Abusier Archaeological Site, a satellite city of the Corral civilization, the oldest known civilization in the Americas. What's even more remarkable is that this culture predates both the Maya and the Inca, which are much more widely known today. The excavation was led by Dr. Ruth Shady Solis and her team from the Corral Archaeological Zone, ZAC, with support from Peru's Ministry of Culture. According to the research team, the woman was estimated to be between 20 and 35 years old at the time of her death and stood about 4 feet 11 inches tall. But what shocked researchers most wasn't her age or stature. It was the astonishing preservation of her body. Despite being buried underground for thousands of years, the woman's body still retained portions of skin, hair, and fingernails, elements that are typically the first to decay under natural conditions. This level of preservation suggests that the ancient Corral people may have practiced far more sophisticated burial methods than previously believed. The woman was wrapped in multiple layers of cotton cloth, woven reed mats, and most notably, a layer of fabric made from the feathers of long-tailed parrots, a highly valuable material at the time. This detail immediately drew the attention of archaeologists to her likely social status. Such elaborate burials were typically reserved for the elite, nobility, or individuals with special roles in their communities. The tomb also contained a number of unique grave goods, including a finely hand-woven ceremonial headdress, reed baskets, carved bone pins, Amazonian seashells, evidence of interregional trade, a toucan beak inlaid with beads, weaving tools, fishing nets, and even more than 30 sweet potatoes, a staple food deeply tied to the daily lives of the native population. These objects served not only practical purposes in daily life, but also reflected religious beliefs and views of the afterlife held by the ancient Corral people. Taken as a whole, the findings led experts to a strong conclusion. This woman held a highly important role in her society. She may have been a leader, a priestess, or a figure of spiritual authority. While her exact identity remains unknown, her presence in history helps confirm something long debated, that women in Corral society were not relegated to the background, but actively participated in both religious and social life. This discovery raises a profound question. How did the Corral civilization, 5,000 years ago, develop a burial process capable of preserving a human body with such delicate features as hair, nails, and skin? Could this be evidence of an unknown form of mummification? Or was it simply a fortunate combination of ritual and climate? While researchers continue to seek answers, one thing is certain. The woman in that tomb has become a powerful witness to an ancient civilization, leaving behind not only awe, but also a host of unanswered questions. What do you think about this discovery? Could the Corral civilization still be hiding countless secrets beneath the earth, waiting to be unearthed? Is it possible that under layers of time and soil, there are still people hoping for their stories to be found? I believe so. After all, the world is still full of mysteries we've yet to unlock, especially the ancient world. Terrifying recent discoveries that left scientists speechless, a millennium-old mystery unsolved. The 1,500-year-old lovers' skeletons found embracing in a tomb. In China, once the cradle of powerful dynasties, war and chaos were almost daily occurrences throughout thousands of years of history. Yet amidst that backdrop, some love stories have managed to live on, not through poetry or legend, but preserved in flesh and bone, deep in the cold earth. To begin today's video, let me share with you a strange and deeply moving archaeological discovery. The 1,500-year-old remains of a couple found embracing in a tomb, a scene that left the entire world at a loss for words. It all began last summer during construction work at a site in Datong City, Shanxi Province, China. A group of workers accidentally unearthed an ancient tomb from the Northern Wei Dynasty, a period that lasted from AD 386 to 534 and was known for its political turmoil. But what shocked everyone wasn't the age of the tomb, it was what was found inside. When archaeologists opened the tomb, they were stunned to find the skeletons of a man and a woman locked in a tight embrace, arms wrapped around each other as if they had never parted. The man lay on the left, one arm reaching across to hold the woman's abdomen. The woman rested her head on his shoulder, one arm draped gently across his waist, a position strikingly similar to a tender hug between two living lovers. Even more astonishing, the woman still wore a simple silver ring on her ring finger, a tiny artifact with enormous significance. That single detail led archaeologists to believe this wasn't just a shared burial site. They were husband and wife, joined in life and in death. And you know what? Thanks to the well-preserved remains, scientists were able to determine that the man died around age 30, with evidence of an unhealed fracture in his right arm. Some theories suggest he may have been a warrior who died in battle. The woman, about 35 years old, showed signs of impacted wisdom teeth, indicators that both were likely commoners rather than members of royalty or nobility. But the biggest mystery, and the one that sparked the most debate, is why they died in such a loving embrace. Some believe they perished together in an accident or natural disaster, but the most widely accepted theory is that the husband died first and the wife took her own life to be buried alongside him, hoping to remain with him forever in the afterlife. It's a heartbreaking theory, but also incredibly beautiful, isn't it? Professor Wang, a paleontologist from Texas A&M University who led the research on the tomb, stated that this theory aligns with the cultural values of the Northern Wei era. Despite being a time of war, society then held romantic love in high regard. It mirrors the traditional Chinese folktale, The Butterfly Lovers, where two star-crossed lovers die together and are transformed into butterflies, flying away from the grave, never to be separated again. What makes this discovery even more extraordinary is that among more than 600 ancient tombs excavated in the same cemetery in 2020, a few did contain couples, but only this one preserved two skeletons perfectly intact, still locked in an embrace after 1,500 years. It is truly one of a kind. This isn't just an archaeological finding, it's a vivid, undeniable testament to a love that transcended time and even defied the societal norms of the era. You see, the Northern Wei Dynasty was heavily influenced by Confucian ideals, which frowned upon public displays of affection, even between husband and wife. But this embrace, buried deep underground, tells a different story. Some believe that the local community may have intentionally buried them this way, as a silent gesture of support for their love. This story didn't just shock archaeologists, it moved millions of hearts, because clearly, some things go beyond even death, like love, connection, and the unyielding desire to be together forever. The 4,500-year-old royal boat, lying silent beneath Egypt's desert sands. In a place so scorching that even time itself seems to hesitate, amid the arid expanse of Egypt's Abusier desert, a mystery that had slumbered for 4,500 years has finally emerged beneath the blazing sun. It's not a tomb, not a statue of a god, not even a treasure trove. It's a wooden boat, nearly 60 feet long, lying silently as if waiting for someone to awaken its story. Sounds strange, doesn't it? Who would bury an entire boat in the middle of the desert? But when it comes to ancient Egypt, even the most illogical things often have a sacred reason. And behind this boat lies a spiritual journey rich with myth and reverence. Archaeologists discovered the vessel in the southern necropolis of Abusier, a burial site reserved for powerful nobles from the early days of ancient Egypt, and from the very moment they found it resting on a massive stone base, buried deep beneath the sand. They knew this was no ordinary boat. Measuring nearly 60 feet in length, constructed from ancient wooden planks with incredibly refined joinery, this vessel was not built to sail the Nile like other boats of the time. It was a funerary boat, also known as a solar bark, created to carry the soul of the deceased across the earthly realm into the eternal afterlife, into the presence of the gods. If you've ever heard of the boats buried next to pyramids to serve the pharaohs in the afterlife, then the Abusier boat is one of those sacred relics, a royal funerary artifact that reflects the ancient Egyptians' deep belief in life after death. What sent chills down archaeologists' spines was the astonishing condition of the vessel. It was almost entirely intact, an incredibly rare occurrence after lying beneath the desert sands for more than 45 centuries. Not only that, but the surrounding artifacts, pottery, jars, and cooking vessels were all carefully arranged, indicating a meticulously prepared funeral ritual, not a random burial. Based on the size and structure of the boat, experts believe it may have belonged to a member of the royal family or a high-ranking religious figure. The carvings, the nailless woodworking technique, and the sheer durability of the design have even left modern engineers in awe. Just imagine, over 4,500 years ago, with no machinery, ancient craftsmen used only wood, palm rope, bare hands, and extraordinary intelligence to construct a boat of this scale. It's clear why the ancient Egyptians weren't just pyramid builders. They were also pioneers of ancient naval engineering. But this discovery isn't just a historical milestone. It could also serve as a major boost for Egypt's tourism industry, which has struggled in recent years due to political instability. Now, this sacred 4,500-year-old boat could become a powerful new symbol, drawing archaeology lovers from around the world back to the land of the Nile. And it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that the boat at Abusier isn't just rotting wood or an archaeological artifact. It's a letter from the past, written in the silent language of time, sending the present a message about belief, reverence for the dead, and humanity's eternal longing for immortality. When the final grains of sand were brushed away, it wasn't just a boat that appeared. It was an entire worldview, a once great civilization so brilliant that even time bows to its memory. Ancient Egypt, a land where boats didn't just carry people across rivers, they carried souls across death itself to touch eternity. And of course, countless mysteries still lie hidden beneath those golden sands. Let's wait and see what astonishing revelations the archaeologists of tomorrow will unearth from this timeless land. The 500-year-old human bone wall inside an ancient church. A wall, quite literally, built from human bones. Not from a horror movie or a ghost story, but in the heart of Ghent, Belgium. And what's more astonishing is that it remained hidden in plain sight for over 500 years, until its accidental discovery. It was only on February 18, 2020, during an excavation at St. Bavo's Church, a centuries-old Gothic cathedral steeped in medieval history, that archaeologists stumbled upon this bizarre and eerie structure. Unlike traditional brick or stone, this building material sent chills down everyone's spine. It was made from human femurs, tibias, and skulls, all carefully arranged in layers, stacked on top of one another as if part of a deliberate architectural plan. So the question naturally arises, why would anyone do this? According to Yannick de Grijs, the lead archaeologist on the dig, the most plausible theory is that the wall was built in the 17th century, after the cemetery surrounding the church was leveled. Faced with hundreds, perhaps thousands, of displaced remains, people at the time, rather than cremating or discarding the bones, chose to reuse the most essential parts, the bones, to construct new burial structures. And thus, the human bone wall was born. Sound heartless? Maybe, but in the context of that era, it wasn't necessarily the macabre act we might imagine today. You see, in medieval Christian belief, the soul would one day be resurrected, and the bones, especially the large bones like femurs, pelvises, and skulls, were believed to carry the identity of the soul. Preserving these parts meant preserving the possibility of resurrection after death. Due to time constraints or limited resources, smaller bones, especially those of children, may have been left behind during the collection process. Not out of disrespect, but perhaps simply because the circumstances didn't allow for complete recovery. Even more fascinating, this isn't the only recent case that has archaeologists both intrigued and puzzled. Just a month earlier, in Poland, 4 mysterious warrior graves from the 11th century were unearthed. And in early February, over 40 skeletons were discovered at a construction site in the UK, their arms tied behind their backs, hinting at a mass execution never recorded in historical documents. These back-to-back discoveries not only make medieval European history more compelling, but also raise deep questions about burial customs, beliefs, and how our ancestors coped with death. Looking again at the bone wall inside St. Bavo's church, one thing becomes clear. To those people, human bones weren't just the remains of the dead, they were part of the next life. That wall, instead of being just a cold, grim structure, may have once been a shelter for the soul, a sacred element in funeral rites, something deeply tied to the spiritual beliefs of the time. 2 skeletons, making love in death, a 1,500-year-old mystery from Korea's ancient Silla dynasty. In the world of archaeology, already full of strange and astonishing discoveries, there are some findings so profound, they leave even the most seasoned experts speechless. And this story is one of them. A 1,500-year-old tomb buried deep in the earth of South Korea, where 2 human skeletons, one male, one female, were found in a position that appears to depict sexual intercourse. The discovery shocked not only because of its provocative nature, but also because it raises countless unanswered questions about culture, ritual, and the true identities of these 2 individuals. The tomb has been identified as belonging to the Silla dynasty, one of the oldest and most powerful kingdoms in Korean history, lasting from 57 BC to AD 935. According to archaeologists from the Silla Cultural Heritage Research Foundation, the tomb was constructed from earth and stone, containing the remains of a young woman and a man believed to be between 20 and 30 years old, positioned in a way that immediately evokes the image of 2 lovers in the act of intimacy. At first glance, it may seem romantic, but the deeper researchers dug, figuratively and literally, the more they leaned toward a darker theory. The man may not have been a lover, but rather a sacrificial victim, killed and buried alongside the woman as part of an ancient funerary rite. So what led to this chilling conclusion? First, the woman's body was laid out in a solemn, dignified position, lying on her back, face turned upward, adorned with finely crafted gold earrings, clear indicators of high social status. She may have been a noblewoman or even a female warrior. In stark contrast, the man's skeleton showed no grave goods whatsoever, no weapons, no jewelry, and no visible signs of rank or identity. Additionally, parts of his bones were found collapsed over the woman's body, suggesting that his remains may have been placed there after hers, and not at the same time. One alternate theory is that the man might originally have been placed in a small wooden coffin above or near the woman's body. Over the centuries, the coffin decayed, causing the bones to fall and settle in a position that gives the illusion of intimacy. Still, no one can say for sure. Adding to the intrigue, in a separate chamber adjacent to the tomb, archaeologists found weapons, horse saddles, and pottery, evidence that the woman wasn't just a person of status, but likely someone trained in horseback riding and combat, highly unusual for women of that era. As for the man, nothing was found besides his skeleton. Was he simply a servant sacrificed to follow his mistress into the afterlife, or a lover forced to accompany her on her final journey? According to archaeologist Kim Kwon-il, such discoveries are rare, but not entirely unprecedented in Korean history. However, what makes this case unique is the proximity and intimacy of the burial. Traditionally, sacrificial victims, if present, were buried in separate compartments, often with symbolic objects. But in this case, they were laid side by side in a strikingly intimate pose, with no obvious signs of restraint or violence. This ambiguity has cast a thick fog over their identities and relationship. Debate continues. Were they truly lovers, choosing death together to never be parted? Or was this a brutal ritual, where a lower-class man was sacrificed to serve a powerful woman in the afterlife? The 17 tiny mummies on the summit of Arthur's Seat. When we think of mummies, we usually picture sunlit pyramids, the glorious Egyptian civilization, and great pharaohs buried in magnificent tombs. But few know that in a dark, cold land in northern Europe, a associated with legends of King Arthur and Camelot Castle, exists one of the strangest archaeological mysteries ever discovered. 17 tiny mummies placed in 17 small wooden coffins, hidden deep inside a rock cave on Arthur's Seat Hill, Edinburgh, Scotland. No one knows where they came from, why they were made, or what happened to half of them. But one thing is certain: they do not belong to any dynasty or religion known in human history. Arthur's Seat, the extinct volcano hill east of Edinburgh Castle, is steeped in legend and mythology, once believed to be the site of Camelot in the tales of King Arthur. But in 1836, this fairy tale land suddenly became the focus of archaeologists and the press when 5 boys, while hunting rabbits, stumbled upon a strange rock crevice. Inside, there was no treasure or human skeletons, but 17 tiny coffins, each only about 3 to 4 inches long. Each coffin contained a wooden figurine, roughly carved but fully dressed, as if they were miniature versions of real people. This bizarre discovery immediately stirred Victorian scholars and the public. The July 20, 1836 issue of the London Times described the event in detail and raised many questions. Why exactly 17 mummies? Why arranged in 3 rows, 2 rows of 8 and 1 row with just 1? And most importantly, who made them, and for what purpose? Unfortunately, shortly after the discovery, some boys recklessly burned a few coffins. Fortunately, the rest were collected and temporarily preserved by a professor named Ferguson. He was the first to open these tiny coffins, confirming that inside were wooden figurines dressed in detailed clothing. However, the mummies fell into neglect for over half a century. It wasn't until 1901 that 8 of the remaining figurines suddenly resurfaced and were donated to the National Museum of Scotland. This marked the official start of archaeological investigations into the mystery of the tiny mummies. Through careful analysis, researchers found the figurines were carved with knives from soft wood. Notably, most were missing 1 arm, possibly to make it easier to dress them. Among the 8 specimens, 3 were more finely crafted with rounded edges, while the other 5 were quite crude, suggesting at least 2 different makers were involved in creating these strange works. Clothing studies also revealed clues about their date of origin. According to experts Simpson and Menifee, the fabric worn by the figurines only appeared in Scotland after 1812, when cotton began replacing linen. This indicates the figurines could not have been made before that time. But what puzzled scholars the most was the true purpose of these tiny mummies. Some locals believed they were dolls used in magic, possibly talismans or witchcraft tools for protection or exorcism. Another theory suggested they were spiritual symbols carried by Scottish sailors at sea, either for safety or to honor deceased loved ones. However, the most controversial and fascinating theory connects to a notorious Scottish crime: the murder duo William Burke and William Hare. In the 1820s, they killed 17 victims to sell their bodies to Edinburgh Medical School for research. The chilling coincidence of 17 victims and 17 figurines led many to believe the tiny mummies were a strange form of memorial or penance created by a third party involved in the case but never prosecuted. Yet, this theory faces a significant challenge. Among Burke and Hare's 17 victims, 12 were women, while most figurines wore men's clothing. Thus, the connection remains unconvincing and leaves the mystery unresolved. To this day, the whereabouts of the other 9 figurines remain unknown. Lost over time, passing through private collectors' hands, they may still lie forgotten in dark attics or secret drawers never opened. The story of the 17 tiny mummies on Arthur's Seat Hill lives on, not only as a curious tale, but also as a symbol of the mysteries history cannot or will not reveal. In archaeology, not every secret has an answer, and sometimes it's that very uncertainty that keeps us captivated by the fragments of the past. So, today's journey of discovery has come to an end, but surely the mysteries we've explored together remain, like a big puzzle waiting for someone to solve. Have you ever wondered if humanity will be able to find answers to these mysterious things anytime soon? Or will these secrets forever remain unanswered questions? I'd love to hear your thoughts and feelings about these shocking discoveries. Do you believe in the scientific facts, or do you still hold a bit of doubt about things that can't yet be explained? Don't hesitate to share your opinions in the comments below, because it's you who will help build a lively and exciting community of explorers. Also, if you found this video interesting, don't forget to hit like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you won't miss upcoming videos full of unbelievable mysteries. Thank you all for joining me today, and see you again on the next thrilling adventure. Keep your curiosity and passion for discovery alive, because this world still has many untold stories waiting.